Greetings. My name is David Scaysbrook. I'm the managing partner of Quinbrook Infrastructure Partners. We are a specialist investor in renewables, low carbon energy infrastructure, storage, and grid support. And we operate predominantly in the UK, the US, and Australia. If you go from having a handful to hundreds of thousands of sources of supply, and at the same time, we're having the system itself become smarter in people's ability to take more control over when they use power and to make decisions. If you call it the democratization of power consumption, they have more power in their own hands as to when they consume. Appliances are starting to think for themselves as to when they turn on and when they turn off. All of that creates an incredibly complex, multi-dimensional market, and it is a market, but there's many more actors. There's many more changes in the things that influence price and supply demand outcomes. In a conventional power system, you would traditionally have a small room of people physically managing that in real time, the way you see screens for a trading desk in a similar way, where they have the control and the oversight. In a simple, more singular dimensional power system, that was relatively easy to do. It was still complicated, but the decisions they had to make weren't in millisecond. We're moving to a situation now where power markets are traded, supply demand is settled in milliseconds, where cloud cover can change the output of solar across a very broad section of a state. And solar production can go from 10% of the power system down to 7 or 8 in an instant. We're seeing the same thing will happen in terms of wind conditions. All of these things that are acting at a very high velocity in a multi-dimensional in terms of supply and demand and a higher correlation to weather. When you put all of those things together, it's beyond the capability of a small group of humans to optimize and manage that, not just to keep the lights on, but to ensure that it's optimized in terms of the carbon intensity of the power that's being generated. So we're not using coal or gas when we could be using wind or solar or carbon-free sources of power, but optimized also in an economic and value sense, so that the least expensive form of generation that's also carbon-free is the one that's playing its most important role to supply the demand at that given point in time. Those things are, if you've ever watched a simulation of how autonomous driving works within a vehicle, to see the number of decision points that are occurring within the computerized system of a vehicle to determine where it's going, when it's stopping, when it's moving, there are hundreds of thousands of decisions being made every second, right? And it's sort of hard to comprehend, but if you extrapolate that then into power systems, only, in our view, only highly advanced machine learning systems can manage and optimize that quantity of data, right? That is occurring by the millisecond. And so and this is kind of, it's not, it's observable in markets today. Regulators are working on the use of automation in their centralized control, system planning and system control. And so they know, and it's an accepted fact, that they need to move to automated management of power systems. And so if you're an actor or a participant in that power system, you yourself need to be automated to the same degree of sophistication. Certainly that's our view. And not only that, but you will need to also be able to optimize based on how the weather is changing minute by minute, right? In order to make decisions about which generators are optimal at any given point in time. So when you put that together, um, it's beyond the capacity of constant human control. That's our view. Electricity is a commodities market, but it was unique because the electricity was a non-storable commodity, and therefore it has to be consumed in an instant that it's produced, and that is the way modern power systems are designed, so that the system supposedly produces only what it's needed to be consumed at any given point in time. Now, with the advent of renewables, what happens when sun's not shining, wind is not blowing, etc., and or you've got too much wind or you've got too much solar. And batteries are critical to allowing, some people call it the smoothing of power over a given day or whatever they're referring to. But what occurred to us is it makes electricity a storable commodity for the first time ever, right? And that is a game changer, not only for the way power systems will work, but it's a game changer for how you trade and how you value electricity, right? Because it really then makes the ability to take power that's generated at a given point in time, say during the middle of the day when the sun is at its peak, and to be able to use that then in the early evening, like we're doing with our Gemini project in Las Vegas. We're shifting the solar power from the middle of the day to the early evening, and that's only made possible through battery storage. Then when you look at the way batteries behave, you also have a sort of a little microcosm of lots of changes and influences and data and chemistry and weather and temperature and all these things that are acting on the battery as a physical asset, as well as its interface to the market. And so since 2015, we've been looking at those that have seen the way the market's evolving and developed automated learning algorithms to teach the battery to behave in an optimal way to maximize revenue based on all of those things: degradation, chemistry, temperature, and then what's happening in the market. And a little bit like the previous discussion, that's hard to do if you're a person sitting at a laptop. And so there are a number of innovators that were working on the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence that would get better and better and better the more batteries they could learn from, and the more real world outcomes that could teach itself what the optimal outcomes were in a given situation. It sort of feeds on itself, because the more examples you have, the more batteries you have installed, the more learning there is, the better it gets. What might be a bit extraordinary now, we think will become uh, base case, right? So batteries generally will be optimized using algorithms, and there'll be, if you like, a competition among machines, which is already there today, right? So it's machine competing against machine, or AI competing against AI. That's what's actually happening in the market today. And so we're going to see we think that's just a given. It's not really something that's projected into the future. It's happening now. And so our job is to continue to improve, to invest in the further development of that technology again, and to apply it not only to our own battery systems, but to those of third parties who are in the market, to continue to improve it, continue to make it better, and continue to improve the value that batteries bring to power systems over time.